Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question from Barb. Before I get into the question, I just want to really briefly mention a lot of stuff that's coming up. So there's a live event happening in Michigan in just a couple weeks. There's a webinar next week, next Tuesday, for coaches and practitioners where I'm going to look at, in all my time mentoring and working with coaches and being one for a long time myself, like what really feels like it moves the needle in terms of our effectiveness with clients and our ease and just the work we do overall. So I'm going to share that next Tuesday in a free webinar. There's also a book club starting next month, which I'm super excited about. We're going to be reading the book Liberation Is by Salvador Poe. And finally, I'm going to be leading the Little School of Big Change starting in September for a very, very, very small group of people. I'm pretty much done leading this course, but there's a wait list of people who had been waiting for it. I don't know if it's the last time or not, but I haven't been running it. So I am going to run it in September. So if you have wanted to do that course, if you know anyone who has, this would be your opportunity. And it will be a very intimate group. Okay, so you can find out more about all of those things on my website if you're interested. All right, let me get to Barb's question. So Barb says, I'd like to just start with a wholehearted thank you for what you do. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks, Barb. Now, this is something that has been perplexing me, she says, for a long time. A couple of years ago, when my husband retired, we took the plunge and purchased a very expensive RV. I had immediate buyer's remorse upon leaving the dealership. Oh my, the thoughts, the feelings. And this continued on and off, of course, for several weeks. I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd made a huge mistake, and I was so regretting the purchase. But the funny thing is, about 10 weeks after we made the purchase, the RV was totally destroyed by a hurricane. We were fully insured, the insurance company paid out, and we walked away. No more RV, no more huge loan, done and dusted. So my question is, how then can I see that thought feeling is empty, dead, and meaningless, as I say it is? Did my thoughts cause this to happen? I'd like to say no, but I really don't know. I truly don't know what to make of this. And the thing is, this is just one instance. This type of thing occurs all the time to me. It's not just a single isolated instance. Did the thinking, feeling, visualizing, because my mind would often picture life without the RV, somehow manifest the result? How can I see that it did not when the evidence seems to point to the fact that it did? I'd love your take on this. So I love this question because this is so much like what minds do. They want to figure things out. They connect dots. They create dots to connect sometimes. They look at existing dots that are there and connect them, valid or not, accurate or not, who knows. But just that sense of just wanting to know, wanting a reason, wanting it to make sense, wanting to know cause and effect, wanting maybe deeper in this, there's a sense of wanting there to be some way of control. Maybe if my thoughts and my visualizations and my feelings did create this, oh, that's great. Now I have some sense of control over life. And I know you're not saying that, Barb, but that's often kind of baked into this somewhere, whether we're aware of it or not, when we kind of want this stuff to be true in some way. But either way, wanting it to be true, just genuine curiosity, this whole thing about evidence and the way that as you're seeing this, Barb, you're seeing things as evidence for the fact that your thoughts and feelings created this outcome, I think is really just how it goes when we kind of have a starting theory, when we have a hypothesis and then the mind just goes to work trying to find stuff that proves it. And not even so much trying to find it, but just seeing everything consistent with that. So I don't know. I have no idea if there's some law of attraction power or not. No clue. But it doesn't matter. No one knows. No one knows this. Everybody has opinions about it, perhaps, and they have their theories, and everybody can see evidence for anything we want to see evidence for, but no one knows. But what I think is really big to see in this is what I'm mentioning, which is how this all looks like evidence to you. So and how if we back up a little bit, we can start to see this is bigger than your question. This is about how a mind creates reality, what it calls reality. Really kind of getting a feel for the incredibly creative, biased nature of that. So you're sharing all this, and I get for you, from your perspective, that period after you bought the RV with all the buyer's remorse, 10 weeks of it, off and on, of like, what did we do and how do we get out of this and how wonderful would it be to get out of this? That was big in your experience. That was big and huge and emotional and all of that. So then when something happened, a hurricane that kind of wiped all of this out, again, that's like huge in your memory, and it's only in memory, right? But it's huge in your experience. It's emotional. So it makes a lot of sense that the mind would be like, whoa, I went from all of this thinking and worrying and visualizing and all of that emotion to suddenly this thing happened that my little mind couldn't have predicted. It's a hurricane, but your mind, that wasn't in your mind's equation, so it looks kind of magical. So it's like this thing happened, wiped all of that out. And, it must be that all of that thinking somehow played a role or caused this. And I get it from that perspective. But again, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. A lot. When I hear this, it's like, well, what about you're saying all that thinking I can't see, and you say it really kind of extreme. How can I see that thoughts are dead? Did my feelings cause this to happen? How do I see that it didn't, that my thoughts didn't cause this to happen, when it seems that all the evidence points to the fact that it did? Well, all the evidence is your mind proving what it wants to see and kind of pointing in that direction, right? What I see in this is, what about all that thinking about having an RV? What about all the, it would be great. There must have been some thinking, some planning, like we should get an RV, right? That'll be great. We'll do this and that. How come that didn't cause anything? How come when there's turbulence in an airplane and a bunch of people presumably are thinking, oh my God, I hope we don't crash, the airplane doesn't crash? We want to just see all sides of things. And what happens is exactly kind of what you're describing, is we see the big emotional side, and right away there's a cause and effect relationship created just in thought, just a thought that says there must be something here. But all that is a thought. And when we back up and see the whole picture, again, we need to test this, if we were going to test this, from all kinds of different directions and angles. Look at all the thoughts that show up that don't lead to the outcome that the thoughts are creating, right? It happens all the time, all the time. Look at all the things you've worried about. Look at all the times you've been up all night with something on your mind and it does not come to pass the way that your mind had it pictured. Our mind won't let us see that, especially if we kind of have a preference already. If we're like, I really hope that my thoughts create reality, whatever, your thoughts, your thinking is not going to let you see any of that as evidence. It's so good at just glossing over what doesn't fit. Now, if you were on the flip side, if I was going to give you $10 million to be able to disprove that there's any manifestation thing here happening, I guarantee you could go into any experience and you could find tons of evidence that show there's no way that thought creates outcomes. There's no way it does, because I had all these thoughts and that outcome didn't happen. Or this, there's so many different angles of looking at this. It reminds me of the thing with the elephant where someone's holding the tail, they're blindfolded, they're holding the tail and they're like, it's a broom. It's like rough bristles of a broom. And someone else is blindfolded holding the ear and they're like, it's velvet. And when you rip the blindfolds off and see the whole picture, you see how wrong everyone was instantly, because we're just looking at our own little sliver. So bottom line, big picture, I have no idea. I'm not really interested in law of attraction. I don't want it to be true. I don't want it to not be true. I don't really care. So I just don't have any thinking about whether it is or not. But I just want you to see what your mind is calling evidence, because it's not just in this case. It'll do it all the time. And then a mind will go out in the world and be convinced that it can make things happen, which is fine. That's just another line of thinking, except it creates a lot of suffering. When it looks like something happened because we didn't think about it the right way, or, there's so many little traps, so many little loopholes in this that create a lot of suffering when we're in this illusion, I would call it, or who knows, maybe it's true, but when we believe that our thinking makes things in the world show up in this way, I don't know, it's a wild ride, let's put it that way. I'm sure there's lots of ups and lots of excitement and lots of joy when things go your way, and lots of suffering when they don't. And that's the human condition when we're identified with thought. When we believe our thinking and we think I'm a me and I'm a doer and I'm making things happen, so it's an emotional roller coaster. And that's fine. But it doesn't have to be that way. When we just don't know, when we just say, I don't know, just happened. The hurricane happened. The RV thing happened. We thought we really wanted it. We realized we really didn't. There's no real explanation for any of it. Then it's like, it's just gone. It's just done. It doesn't matter anymore. There's nothing to figure out. And to me, that's what happiness is. Happiness is when we're just here. And that's the ironic part about kind of thinking that we can, make things happen with our minds or whatever, is people are only doing that because they think if these things happen, I'll be happier. But really, happiness is the absence of all of that thinking. It's just kind of a little bit backwards. It's like, it's right here. And it's not in any outcome. It's like, right here, right? Like it's just peace and whatever words we want to call it. It's right here, right now. And it's when the thinking starts about someday and me getting, and I did this and this caused that we get away from that deeper peace and happiness. So anyway, that's my thinking about manifesting in general. But again, I have no idea. I really don't know. But just watch the evidence piece. It's really interesting and a great question because it really starts showing you how everybody's mind, not just yours, it's totally innocent. It's just what a mind does. They're going out just looking for evidence, seeing things as evidence that prove what they already kind of think. So thank you for sending your question, Barb. I hope something in there made some sense, and yeah. We'll see. So thanks everyone for listening. Send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll see you next time.